It's me, Pup. How are you doing? Apologies if I sound like garbage. I, for one, am sick today. But I'm gonna do my best to be my usual chipper, expressive self. But that is why I sound like this. Okay, so it's been a minute since we found out that Doctor Who, in its current form, under its current kind of production lineage, if you will, is done. And that we are entering another, probably shorter wilderness years for Doctor Who while this show gets its shit together. They're looking for new production teams, new showrunners outside of their previous pool, which is something they should have done at the end of Jodie Whittaker's era, to be honest, but who had the foresight that Russell T Davies would bi-generate into a shit writer, and just leave all the Doctor Who work to the shitty version, who I have affectionately dubbed Rusty Davies. Fortunately, in the meantime, we do at least still have Doctor Who in some form. Enter Circuit Breaker, the third of these Doctor Who multimedia campaigns, following Time Lord Victorious and Doomsday. So you've got novels, audios, comic books, that all tell a complete story, and this is a brand new adventure for Jo Martin's Doctor. When it comes to the existence of Jo Martin's Doctor, I'm kind of two minds. This Doctor is a byproduct of the Timeless Child storyline, which was a huge retcon. And by the time that plotline rolled around, I was kind of apathetic towards Doctor Who anyway, so I was kind of just excited by the prospect of something unique. Secret Doctors are always exciting, like John Hurt was a textbook example of that. But I think positioning her before William Hartnell really kind of set any story pertaining to this Doctor up on rocky ground, because it just doesn't really make any sense. And it does kind of undercut the significance of that first Doctor. However, it is massively implied that the Doctor prior to becoming that William Hartnell Doctor was a very different thing. She was part of the Division, she carried a gun. She wasn't really the Doctor in the traditional sense. This is kind of the Doctor before becoming the Doctor. And we learned of her old enemies, Swarm and Azure. She didn't have a companion in the traditional sense, she had Carvanista, who was an operative for the Division, and he worked directly alongside the fugitive Doctor. While I understand that the retcon pissed a lot of people off, and yes, does undercut a lot of Doctor Who history, I can't deny that the potential to really explore the idea of the Doctor before becoming the Doctor that we know is incredibly exciting. And having us explore that with a devoted story, Circuit Breaker, sounds again really exciting. It's an opportunity to explore who the Doctor was before becoming the Doctor. Except what Circuit Breaker might as well have done is, to use a Spider-Man analogy, if Spider-Man, Peter Parker, were born with the web shooters, if he immediately believed in the whole "with great power comes great responsibility" mantra, if he could climb walls since day one. We know from the Stephen Moffat era that the Doctor is a name that the Doctor chose. It was kind of a promise. So implying that pre-William Hartnell the Doctor was referring to themselves as the Doctor is already an issue. The police box looking like a police box is already an issue. But unfortunately, Circuit Breaker has already doubled down on this. When I think of all the crazy wild things that we could do with a pre-Doctor Doctor effectively, and then I see what Circuit Breaker's actually doing, I can't help but think this whole thing is incredibly unimaginative compared to what it could have been. The story is that reality is being torn apart, and the Doctor has been called in by UNIT to help out. We've got an upcoming comic book featuring Jo Martin's Doctor against the Daleks. The Silents are back. She'll be teaming up with Osgood and Martha Jones, although unfortunately not portrayed by Freema Agyeman. She will not be returning to the franchise from what I understand. And she has her very own unique sonic screwdriver prop, which also proves that Russell T Davies was worried about fuck all when it came to the sonic screwdriver quote-unquote looking like a gun. Because we're back to it looking like a stick, and yeah, it works, okay? It just looks better this way. I even like the little clip that it's got. Like this could clip onto a belt or her pants or something. Also, Jo Martin's new purple-hued outfit with the hat looks fantastic. They've got incredible designers, artists, probably some great ideas, but my issue is that the ideas just aren't there because she is now basically just any other Doctor. The only interesting thing here being that she's completely unfamiliar with the Daleks. Don't get me wrong, I love the Daleks. I'm always going to be happy to see the Daleks back. But this is a pre-Doctor Doctor. Why are her adventures so fucking run-of-the-mill? Why are there so many familiar characters and concepts here? Does that not also completely undercut the Doctor's first meeting with them in the show? Yes, you can make the amnesia stipulation, sure. The Time Lords wiped her memory. But then why do these characters react to the Doctor the way they do? Jo Martin's adventures as the Doctor continuing in other media forms was a great idea, but she needed iconography to call her own because otherwise she's just any other Doctor and might as well be a post-Hartnell numbered Doctor. And I think the problem all begins with the branding. Why is she still called the Fugitive Doctor? This naming convention immediately ties her to Fugitive of the Judoon. It just ties her to that story. It makes her sound like a gimmick. The optics surrounding this character as the first Black Doctor Who have always been incredibly awkward. From her being relegated to a plot device for the 13th Doctor, the fact that we have to refer to Ncuti Gatwa as the first full-time Black Doctor Who is already crazy. We should have had a Black Doctor Who ages ago, but they can't just be fucking normal about it, can they? The sad thing is, Jo Martin is actually really fucking good as the Doctor. Even though her screen time is small, and even though she's been done an absolute disservice by the writing, I would still put Jo Martin's performance as the Doctor very high up in my estimations. She's got that sense of confidence, but also mystery that I felt was missing from the 13th and 15th Doctors. If you ask me, if Russell T Davies wanted a quick pick for the next Doctor who was already a familiar actor, having Jo Martin reprise her role as the next Doctor was the way to go. We've already proven that can happen with David Tennant. The Billie Piper twist just seems all the more fucking stupid when you remember that Jo Martin was right there. I think there'd be a lot less talk of a poisoned chalice if Jo Martin's face were the one to show up, rather than Billie Piper's, because we could just see right through that. Jo Martin hasn't really had a fair crack at this role. As far as I'm concerned, she deserves it more than anyone else. But since we're doing this prequel story, and already we've got Unit and Osgood, Martha Jones, the Daleks, the Cybermen, the Silence, this is just any other Doctor now. Why the fuck does this need to be pre-Hartnell? It looks like yet another whistle-stop tour of references and nostalgia. The sad thing is, there was an opportunity here to create a second continuity for Doctor Who. If you ask me what I would have done with this, I would have called her the first of the minus Doctors. She'd be Doctor -1. And with these minus Doctors, it would be cool if the narrative worked its way backwards to kind of the Doctor's birth. Things get revealed, memories get revealed. Imagine Doctor Who as a TV show, but with a narrative structure that moves backwards instead of forwards. Like inversed Doctor Who. Turn the show inside out. Of course, there's a bunch of logistics that you would need to think through, such as introducing us to the character at kind of the end of their story. How does regeneration really work in a backward narrative sense? And then you have to justify moving backward as well, but a backward progression could make this really interesting. You could even imply that at some stage time started moving backwards, which is why we even have these minus Doctors in the first place. The idea that they weren't originally part of the timeline, but they sure as hell are now, because now there's a second timeline that moves in the other direction. You could also go nuts with all these crazy, horrible things happening to the Doctor that you'd 100% want to forget. Honestly, I wish these stories would take place in further reaches of the universe. Doctor Who already has an issue with relying on Earthbound stories like they're a crutch. So for the minus Doctors, imagine if everything took place in the furthest reaches of space, if the Doctor had never set foot on Earth before. Or maybe you could have a story where it's the Doctor's very first time setting foot on Earth. That would be a big story out of an otherwise mundane concept. With this, though, you could create a B-side to the main Doctor Who continuity that people can take or leave, but has something that makes it different. Rather than the return of enemies like the Daleks, who I love and I miss, but in this case, we should have just had Swarm and Azure be the nemesis of this Doctor. Develop them more, make their place in the Doctor Who Flux storyline feel a little bit more justified, add some weight to it. You could introduce other enemies that are recurring nemeses for these Doctors. If Swarm and Azure were like this Doctor's Daleks, what do this Doctor's kind of Cyberman equivalent look like? And don't tell me it's just the fucking Cybermen. This run could have been super experimental, and with that could have laid down potential blueprints and ideas for when the next mainline Doctor Who series comes into effect. Maybe the people that pick up the tender like this so much that they decide to continue with it. It's certainly a better launch pad than the fucking reality war. It's just a shame that even now, Doctor Who is still wasting opportunities left, right, and center while clinging to nostalgia, and it just needs to stop. We're in a wilderness years where we don't know whether or not the show is actually going to come back. Realistically, it is. The BBC are clearly investing into it, but again, we had an opportunity here to really flip the script and reimagine the show, get experimental, lay down inspiration for the next team that takes over the main show. Novel narrative structures, new villains, new characters, new companions, new worlds, and instead it is just the same old. Maybe that is what the diehard Doctor Who fans need right now, just some fucking comfort food, but this could have been so much more. I'm not ruling out that this could still be a pretty cool little event, this could still be a decent story, but it is no way living up to the potential of this secret pre-Doctor Doctor. And that's just very disappointing in my opinion. But what do you guys think? Comment below, discuss. If you like the video, leave a like. If you dislike the video, leave a dislike. If you want to be just a complete champ, the hype button is right there. Subscribe if you love Doctor Who and are honest about it. And now, a special thank you shout out to the patrons in the $5 and above tier. They are Manalza, KB, Twilord, Biotin, Cirrus the Skeptic, and Mr. SP. Kale Bennett, I can't think of a funny, give me a sec. Well, you're basically just having a conversation with me via your username, so you might as well just keep that going. Dead Denny, Sad Goku, Ghostly Phantom, Xander Wolf, Neo Metal Pup, Council of Geeks, SSS06, Carl X, RT0, Marvin Animation, Grant Allen, Josh Strider, Ben Raven, My Name is the Fucking Mimic, oh yeah, you got me to do it again, Gideon Wells, Pressplater Jason, Joseph Tribble, and Cho Henshin. Thank you folks so much for your generosity, and to all of you, my channel is a buffet, you're not full, fill that little tummy up with more of my videos, okay? Now get out of here, farewell.